Welcome back, everybody. It's Zach here, bringing us another fantasy football video. So I'm going over the first 7 matchups of Week 6. We've got 4 teams on bye this week, so we're down to 14 games. That's why it's 7 in this video. We'll go over the final 7 games in part 2 of this video. Just don't want to do all 14 games at once. It makes it a really long video, and you guys don't want to sit through that. I don't want to record it all at once either, so better to split it up, get an extra day of practice in for those part 2 videos as well, so a little bit more information for them. In these videos, I'll just go over each game, sort of tell you guys how I think that game is going to go position by position, sort of, and just touch on every fantasy relevant player to sort of help you guys get an understanding of what I'm expecting to happen for those players this week, and then hopefully help you guys get your lineup set. If you guys do have any specific start-sit questions, I love helping you guys out there. I do my best to get them right. So let me know in the comments below. I'll do my best to help you out with that. And other than that, any other questions, anything else, let me know in the comments as well. I love interacting with you guys there. And let's get started. We should have a good slate of games this week. Starting things off with what's actually going to be a really exciting Thursday night football game. We have the 49ers going to the Seattle Seahawks. The 49ers are 2-3 right now. The Seahawks are 3-2. This is a massive game for the 49ers right now. They're already 0-2 in the division, having lost to the Rams and the Cardinals already. So the Niners are kind of in a bad spot here. This is about as much of a must-win game as you can sort of have for a team this early on in the season. Niners play the Chiefs in Week 7 as well, so things aren't great for the Niners if they lose this week. I kind of want to start every single player in this matchup as well. The Niners defense seems like it's just like it's got more name value than actual production out of it. The Seahawks are super banged up on the defensive side of the ball as well. Brock Purdy, he's an awesome streaming option. We saw Daniel Jones get a lot done against Seattle last week. Can't imagine sitting Jordan Mason, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, or even Deebo Samuel. I know Deebo was sort of phased out last week, but not worried about that. You're playing him. Ayuk, rolling him out again for sure. Should be a great matchup again. You're playing every single San Francisco 49er. Juwan Jennings is like a low-end flex play. Don't want to go there if I can avoid it, but you know, there's an opportunity there for him to be good. For the Seahawks, Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, both of them are great starts. There's no way you're seeing either one of those guys. Geno Smith, absolutely fantastic streaming option. I think I would play Geno over Purdy if I had to make that decision. Then JSN and Lockett, they're both low-end flex plays. I do prefer JSN to Lockett. I prefer probably both of them to Juwan Jennings if that helps as well. But I think Lockett's like, you're hoping for 5 for 50, and he could give that to you for sure. But JSN just has more ceiling there, so I'd prefer to go with JSN if I had to this week. Next, we've got another London game here. We've got the Jacksonville Jaguars going to the Chicago Bears, but not really going to the Chicago Bears because they'll be playing this game in London. Reminder as well, with these London games, they kick off really early in the morning, 6:30 a.m. Pacific time. So if you're on the West Coast, even if you're somewhere anywhere in the country, really, just know that you want to make sure you have your lineup set before those games. Not really super excited about this one. The Jaguars defense has been really bad, so the Bears should put up a decent amount of points here, but the Bears defense is really good, so especially their pass defense, which does limit my excitement about guys like Brian Thomas Jr. and Christian Kirk. Both of them are starting options here. Brian Thomas Jr., my preferred play between the two. I think Brian Thomas Jr. is a really good player. He's a guy that I do think could be a top 12 wide receiver the rest of the season. That's certainly in the cards. So I don't want to overreact there. I still think you're playing him, but like we just saw what the Bears did to the Panthers last week. They've been a lockdown pass defense so far all season. Evan Ingram, you can probably start him if he's active just because the tight end position sucks, but don't expect a lot out of him. You're hoping the Jaguars get down early and then just have to sort of dig and dunk their way to maybe get back in it. Tank, Bixby, and Travis Etienne, both low-end plays for me. The Bears defense, kind of a run funnel. Like we saw Chuba really be the only Panther last week be useful at all. So I think they're both decent plays. I prefer Etienne to Tank still just because he's more involved as a pass catcher. But he did get banged up a little bit last week. He hurt his shoulder. We'll see what happens with that. It's interesting to see what's going to happen there. So I think you can play both of them, but I wouldn't expect a big game out of either one. For the Bears, DeAndre Swift, great start. There's no way you're sitting him. DJ Moore must start in this game. The Jaguars are one of the worst pass defenses in the NFL. Caleb Williams, interesting streaming option. We saw Joe Flacco be a monster against him last week. Could easily see another good week here for Caleb. It makes Keenan Allen, Cole Kmet, Rome Odunze not guys I really want to play. They're really low-end starting options, and I'd prefer to bench all of those guys. But I bet between those three, one of them probably puts up a decent game in this game as well. Next up, we've got the Bucs at the Saints in this one. Start the usual, so Mike Evans and Chris Godwin here. I can't imagine benching either one of those guys. Baker Mayfield, low-end streaming option. The Saints defense is pretty good, and I don't really know if the Saints are going to be able to keep up in this game, so you could see a situation sort of like last week where the Bucs put up a lot of points in the first half and then don't do a lot in the second half. Sort of a different game environment because the Bucs needed to score in the second half and couldn't, but I think we could see that happen there. Both Buccaneer running backs, Rashad White and Bucky Irving, going to be low-end RB2s for me. You're hoping one scores a touchdown. Rashad White getting most of the early down work, but also, it's just tough. They're both not playing well enough or enough for me to trust either one of them as a high-end starting option, but you can obviously play them if you need to. Cade Otton, a decent play at the tight end position this week. He's got 21 targets over the last 3 weeks. Saints have been really bad against tight ends so far this season. We just saw Kelsey catch dime balls. So I think you can play Cade Otton this week, but I wouldn't expect him to win your week, obviously. The Saints, super tough here. I'm not really thrilled with what's going to happen here. We're going to see Spencer Rattler, which is exciting. He's a talented player. He had obviously a lot of pedigree at one point during his college career, if you follow college at all. Sort of had a bad last year in college, so sort of slipped in the draft a little bit. Went in like the 5th round of the draft here, but looked really good in preseason. There is some upside there, but I'm just not going to expect him to play well going into this game. Alvin Kamara should be a must start here, though. Like, he's going to be a guy they're going to dump the ball down to a ton. Workhorse running back, got a good shot to score every single week, so Kamara is a must start. Behind him, though, like Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed, they're both flex plays here. I'm a little scared about the quarterback play. Olave, I'm not worried about him long term. I know last week was brutal, but it was against the Chiefs. They shut down every single number one, so don't panic about Chris Olave. But the quarterback plays can be bad. You don't really want to trust that, so I just keep that in mind. I think that better days are ahead for these guys, but it might be just a rough couple weeks until we get Derek Carr back. Next up, we got the Commanders at the Ravens. This one should be a super exciting game. Both of these teams have looked unstoppable on offense for the last 3 or 4 weeks at this point. For the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, Brian Robinson, Terry McLaurin, they are all in your lineups here. Zach Ertz, pretty good starting option actually, had 8 targets last week. I know it didn't turn out great from a fantasy standpoint, but he was involved. The Ravens have been a good matchup for opposing tight ends, so I like Zach Ertz as a streaming option this week. For the Ravens, Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry, and Zay Flowers, all great starters. Obviously, you're playing Lamar and Henry. Zay Flowers, he's the wide receiver one in this offense. Clearly, this Commanders team should put up points, and you can still beat them through the air. I know, obviously, Deshaun Watson didn't, but Deshaun Watson doesn't beat up on anybody. So Zay Flowers should be a decent starter for sure. And then if you have to play a tight end here, I'd still play Mark Andrews out of the 3 tight ends there. I know it didn't necessarily work out like that last week, but I would still play him over the other guys, but I don't really want to play him either. Just like a low-end tight end option. You're praying for a touchdown. I think you can do better. I'd play Zach Ertz over him if I had to. So, you can play him, but it's obviously just a tough spot there. Next, we got the Cardinals at the Packers. Another fun game here, too. Mediocre to bad defenses against some really good offenses. So, this should be a high-scoring game here. For the Cardinals, Kyler Murray, James Conner, Marvin Harrison, Trey McBride, you're starting all of those guys. There's no way you're going to bench either one of them. Michael Wilson, he's a low-end streaming option for me. Really did emerge a little bit last week. He's the clear number 2 wide receiver in this offense. He's a good player. Has a 74% catch rate on the season. Kyler Murray clearly trusts him. You can play him if you need to, but just don't expect a big week. You're hoping for like 6 for 60. For the Packers, Jordan Love, great play. You're playing him for sure. Could easily be, like, if you told me he was the number 1 quarterback on the week, I'd say that's certainly in the range of outcomes here. Jacobs, Jaden Reed, both of them need to be in your lineups for sure. And I can't imagine benching Tucker Kraft, another great matchup, so you're playing him. Dontavian Wicks, he's a scary flex play, obviously been super involved, but the floor, we saw it last week, so I still think you can play him, especially if you need some upside, but there's obviously a really wide range of outcomes with Wicks there. And then I'm not going to play Romeo Doubs this week, even if he's active. He could put up a big game, but like guys coming off of a suspension like that, like he could easily be on a limited snap count. They could still have him in the doghouse, keep punishing him a little bit. I just can't imagine trusting Romeo Doubs in my lineup this week. Next up, we've got the Colts at the Titans. I don't imagine I really am going to be super excited about any of the Colts in this one. They are super banged up. We saw Anthony Richardson. He's on the injury report still. Maybe he'll suit up in this game, but Jonathan Taylor is still limited in practice. I don't even know if he did practice today. Michael Pittman popped up on the injury report with a back injury. They're talking about IR as an option for Pittman here. So it's really gross for the Colts. They're not going to have a lot of options there. Operating under the assumption that all 3 of those guys miss, so we don't have Richardson, Jonathan Taylor, or Michael Pittman. Josh Downs should be a really great play. I don't think they would bring L'Jarius Sneed into the slot on Josh Downs. You'd probably see him cover Alec Pierce and A.D. Mitchell. Downs is a really good player, so he obviously gets a boost if Flacco plays regardless. With Pittman out, I still think you can trust Downs as a solid flex play regardless if who's at quarterback, but I don't really want to play anyone else there. Like, Alec Pierce is a desperation flex play, obviously up with upside because he's a great deep threat, but that's all he can do. And then Trey Sermon, super low-end starter if Jonathan Taylor sits, but obviously just rough. The Titans' run defense isn't all that bad. Just tough for me to trust any of that. For the Titans, Tony Pollard, he's in for sure. The Colts are not a good run defense. We saw Tank Bigsby go nuclear on them last week. We've seen a lot of players just really tear up the Colts on the ground. We saw the Packers just demolish them on the ground in week 2. This is a Colts team that you can run on for sure. So Pollard's definitely a great play. Calvin Ridley is the wide receiver that I want to play if I'm playing a Titans wide receiver. But it's tough. He's obviously been disappointing. I think he has only 9 catches on the season. But Colts are an elite matchup for opposing wide receivers, especially on the outside. That's why we targeted Brian Thomas Jr. last week. Obviously, that panned out. So I bet either one of Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins comes through with a big game. I bet on it being Ridley. I think he's the better player still. Still think he's the wide receiver one in that offense. And I think that he's a guy that could definitely get loose in this secondary. And I want to play Ridley as like a low-end wide receiver 2 this week because I think there's so much upside there. But I could see a world where you have better options. And the last game in this video here we're going to talk about is going to be the Texans at the Patriots. I just pour one out for Nico Collins. Obviously, he's been tearing up the NFL. Pulled his hammy last week. Sounds like he's going to miss 4 weeks at least. They obviously put him on IR earlier today. So that's a huge disappointment. You know, he was on track to be the wide receiver 1 so far this season. He has been absolutely dominant player. So sucks to see that happen. Hopefully he gets back soon. It does open up more opportunity here for Tank Dell and Stephon Diggs. I think you're playing both of them this week. There's just way too much opportunity now in this offense. The Patriots defense, not good at all. I think the Texans should be able to take advantage of it. And your only concern is that maybe they just get up so much early that they just run the ball, and that could certainly happen, but I'm not really too worried about that. If they get up early, it means that somebody on the offense scores. You're just hoping that it was Dell or Diggs. CJ Stroud, he's in your lineup. Don't expect a week winning performance because, like I said, you might only need 1/2 out of him, but he should still be in your lineup for sure. Makes Dalton Schultz an interesting tight end streaming option as well, just because, you know, he's now the number 3 option in the passing offense. I think you could stream him and you could do worse than Dalton Schultz. Really hope we get Joe Mixon back this week. This offense just needs him. He's a much better option than they have in any of their backfield alternatives. Looked really great in week 1. I think he's a guy that could be a difference maker, like a significant difference maker at the running back position. So if he comes back, you're playing him for sure. If he's out, like, you could go to Cam Akers, but you're praying for a touchdown. Dario Gumbawale looks like the better player, but probably not going to get the goal line work. So I don't really want to play either one of those guys, but you know, we're all desperate sometimes at the running back spot. So if you need to play either one of them, they're low-end options. For the Patriots, Ramondre Stevenson, the only one that I want to play here. The Texans defense is pretty good. Ramondre's really been the only reliable offensive producer on this offense. So Ramondre's in for me, but nobody else really. Like, we want to keep an eye on this offense because we're going to see Drake May. Hopefully he elevates everybody on this team. There is that in the range of outcomes here, so I'm rooting for him to come in and just make a difference because I do think that, like, I think Jalen Polk's a good player. I think Demario Douglas is a good player. I think Hunter Henry's a perfectly fine tight end. If Drake May can come in and be a good quarterback for them, then he could obviously elevate the whole offense. So I'm hoping that's what happens, but until I see it, it's going to be Ramondre and nobody else for the Patriots. So that'll do it for part 1 of this video. Up next, I'll be going over the remaining 7 games, so I will touch on any of the games that I didn't talk about in this video, so stay tuned for that one. I'll close things out. It'll be the same format as this one. On Sunday morning as well, at 1 hour before the morning games kick off, so at 9 a.m. Pacific time, 12 p.m. Eastern, I'll be going over a last-minute live stream, so I'll cover last-minute injury updates. Any start-sit questions you guys have, I'll answer them live on air. It's just really fun interacting with you guys, sort of tilting live before those games start and get ready to win some games. So hopefully you guys catch me on that one. It's really fun interacting with you guys there. If you guys haven't subscribed to the channel already, please do. There's going to be content like this all year long, so make sure you're subscribed. That way I can help you out and help you win a trophy with me. Other than that, though, if you made it this far in the video, give it a thumbs up. It helps me out, and I'm looking forward to catching you guys with the next one. Let's hopefully get a good Thursday Night Football game as well. Peace, guys. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.